Hello, it's yet another episode where we shall be looking at the revision, practice, and preparation for the grade 9 mathematics paper 1 for the examination of November that is forthcoming. Okay, so looking at this paper, okay, it's a paper that's out of 75 marks. And what topics can we expect in paper 1? Okay, so topic number 1 is what we call the whole numbers. Okay, so whole numbers will be basically things to do with number types, okay, types of numbers. 2, there's something that we called multiples and factors. And then number 3, things to do with speed, distance, and time. And then we could also have something to do with the financial maths, even the ratios and proportions. So those are all under the whole numbers. Number 2, we expect to have the integers. Okay, that is the positive and the negative whole numbers. And under the integers, we need to know how to do the calculations. Okay, calculations that involve integers. Okay, and then besides the calculations, we need to know things to do with the square roots and then the cube roots of numbers and how we work around with those numbers in an equation expression. Then number 3, we also have what we call the number patterns. Some people call them the linear or geometric patterns. Okay, so those are the patterns we need to know. How do we determine the next 2 terms? How do we describe the pattern? How do we find the nth term? And so on and so forth. And then number 4, we have what we call the exponents in grade 9. Okay, exponents and indices. So we need to know the laws and then the applications. All right, so then topic number 5 is the algebraic expressions. Okay, algebraic expressions. And then followed to that, we have what we call the algebraic equations. Okay, these two are different. Equations and expressions. And then lastly, the last topic for paper 1 has to be the functions. Okay, functions and relationships. That's when you do your bit of graphing and determining the rule and all of that. So it's more linked to the number patterns. Okay, it works hand in hand. So basically, those are the topics for paper 1. Whatever is not here comes straight into paper 2. So I'm going to use this paper just as a dummy or just as a revision guide. So follow through and let's see how we would have done a paper of this magnitude. So this paper is 75 marks. Duration should be 2 hours. The instructions are clear. We need to do or answer all the questions. Then 6.2.2 must be answered on the grid and number your answers the way the questions are numbered. You need to show all the calculations. Grade 9s, this is important. The next, you may start with any question. I love this paper because it does not tell you that you must start with question number 1. Okay, meaning that whatever question you feel comfortable with, whatever section you are comfortable with is what you can start with. In that way, you're going to save a lot of time. Okay, then a non-programming calculator may be used, and then you need to write neatly and legibly. All right, so question number 1, we have multiple choice questions. We have 10 of them. Okay, so let's see. They're telling us 4 options have been provided as answers. We need to choose the most correct answer. So which of the following numbers is a rational number? So one thing we know about rational numbers is that these are numbers that can be written as fractions. Okay, can be written as A over C, meaning that all whole numbers, okay, all natural numbers, all integers, all these ones form what we call the rational numbers. So pi is irrational. We cannot find the square root of -1, 1, 2, 3 with a dot. It's a recurring. So it's a fraction. Square root of 10 is irrational. So the best answer would be a C. 1.2, calculate 6 plus 6 divided by 2 minus 6 times -2. So we use body mass since we have more than one sign. So with the body mass or bed mass, we start with a division because we don't have any brackets as such. So division is going to come first, meaning 6 plus 6 divided by 2 is a 3. And then there's multiplication also. So we have a 6 times a -2, which is a -12. So we can combine these two signs and we get a plus. So 6 plus 3 plus 12. This is going to be a 9 plus 12, which gives us a 21. So option C is the best. Then 1.3, these exponents, they want us to simplify. So when you're simplifying, whatever is outside of the bracket must affect everything that is inside the bracket exponent-wise. So it's going to be 2 cubed multiplied by a cubed, b cubed, and then c cubed. If we want to make this a positive exponent, we're going to move it down so that it is 2bc. Everything is squared. So I'll say 2 squared, b squared, c squared. Okay, so what we get, we know that 2 cubed is the same as 8. So it's 8a cubed, b cubed, c cubed times. It's going to be 1 over 4, b squared, c squared. So they are not simplifying anything. They're just expanding these brackets, or opening the brackets with exponents. So option A, because of this 4, it's out. Option B, because of the position of the 4, it's also out, and because of the 6 also. Option C, I think it tallies, it matches what we want, which is that 6 is out to make that wrong. 1.4. The next term in the sequence is, so what's happening here? I see we are subtracting a 4, and then we subtracted 3, we subtracted 2, meaning that we must subtract a 1, so that we get 8 as our answer. Okay. These are subtractions, minus, minus. Okay, then 1.5, how many terms are there in this expression? Now, we know that if we have a division line like this, division creates one term. If we have a multiplication sign, multiplication also creates one term. So in other words, we only have one term here. If ever there was a plus in between these divisions, then we're going to have 2 terms. All right, question 1.6. We need to open this bracket. So this is going to be the same as x minus 3, and then x minus 3. That's going to be x squared if we use the FOIL method. Then this one will give us a -3x. That is also -3x. -3 and -3 must give us a +9. So it's x squared minus 6x plus 9, which is B. Then if x squared is 25, okay, they want us to find the value of x. Now, from grade 9, whenever we have a square or anything to the exponent of 2, and it's an equation, the answer we get must be 2, the answers. Okay, the answers we get must be 2. So we can find the square root, meaning that x should be a plus or minus 5. Alternatively, if you use the difference of 2 squares, we move the 25 that side. It's going to be x squared minus 25 is equal to 0. And then factorize that, x minus 5, then x plus 5. And then we solve this. First, x is a 5, or it's a -5. So C is the best answer. Then 1.8, they want us to complete the flow diagram by using the given rule. Okay, so if we have 8, all we have to do is substitute. Remember, this represents the input, which is x. This is the output, y. Meaning that our y is going to be negative 3 times 8 plus 2. Negative 24 plus 2, which is a negative 22, which is option A. Then next, we have 1.9. And then with 1.9, what the question is asking is they want us to get the equation of this line. So whenever you're finding the equation of the line, remember m is the gradient. We need to find it. C is the intercept, which is the y-intercept. We also need to find that. So we have the 2 points. Let's start by getting the gradient. We know that gradient is change in y over change in x. That's going to be, if I call this my x1, y1, x2, y2, it's going to be 6 minus minus 2 over 1 minus minus 3. I know that 6 minus minus gives me 8. That gives me a 4, which means my gradient is a positive 2. So automatically these two are out. Then I know that y is equal to mx plus c. If I use the point 1 and 6, where there is y, I'll put a 6. M is a 2 with a 1 plus c. So 2 times 1 is a 2 when I move it that side, meaning that my c is a positive 4. So y is going to be a 2x plus 4, which is option D. Okay, then lastly, with the multiple choice, consider the linear graph. We must find the missing values. Okay, so we don't necessarily, or we can anyway. We can find the equation first of all. That's one way. So the change in y is going to be a 3 negative, and then the change in x is also going to be a negative 3, meaning that my gradient is the change in y over change in x. So negative 3 over negative 3 is going to be a 1. So my equation becomes x plus 3. Now, if I use this equation, I can find what a is and then what b has to be. So if x is a 0, so it's going to be 0 plus 3, meaning that our a must be a 3. And then if y is a 4, so 4 is equal to x plus 3, move the 3 that side, x must be a 1, so b is a 1. So A is a 3, B is a 1. Option D becomes the best option there. All right. Okay, question 2, they're telling us that 4 packets of biscuits cost 74 rands. What will be the cost of 6 packs? Okay, so this is more like a direct proportion. So we're going to say that if 4 packets are costing 74 rands, what about 6 packets? So someone can also start by looking at the cost of 1 packet, okay, to say that 1 packet is going to cost 74 divided by 4. Okay, so 74 divided by 4, that's 18 rand and then 50 cents. And then now speaking of 6 packets, it's going to be 6 multiplied by 1850. So 6 times 1850, that gives me 111. Okay, so that is what we are having in that case. All right, then now 2.2, they want us to get the LCM and HCF of 60 and 18. Okay, so 60 and 18. So there are quite a number of methods that we can use, but let me use prime factorization. Okay. So with the prime factorization, I can say what are the factors of 60? Or what are the prime factors of 60? Let me just say prime factors of 60. So 60 equals, then I press the shift and then the factorization button. I'm getting 2 squared times 3 times a 5. And then prime factors of 80, I'll do the same thing. That is shift and then the factorization, I'm getting 2 to the 4 multiplied by 5. Okay, for people that will have issues using calculators, you can just break down the 60 using prime numbers. So by 2 is a 30, by 2 is a 15, by 3 is a 5, and then by 5 we get a 1. So we have 2 2s, 1 3, and a 5. 2 2s, 1 3, and a 5. We do the same thing with 18. So by 2 is a 40, by 2 is a 20, by 2 is a 10, by 2 is a 5, and then by 5 is a 1. So we have 4 2s and then a 5. Good. So if we are looking for the HCF, we look for what is common between the two. Okay. But we have a 2 to the 4 and a 2 to the 2. So meaning that we take out the one with the smallest exponent, which is 2 squared. We now also see that there's a 5 and there's a 5, so we just multiply it once. So 2 to the 4 times 5 gives us a 20. And then with the LCM, we're seeing that 2 to the 2 and 2 to the 4 take out the biggest one. 2 to the 4 multiplied by 1, 5, and then multiplied by a 3. So 2 to the 4 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 3, we end up with a 240. Okay, so that is one way of doing it. Alternatively, if you use the ladder method, if that is 60 and then that is 18, you just break this down using prime numbers. Okay, so how is it going to work? We're saying this is method number 2. We can start with 2. Let me just break down everything completely, whether the prime number divides both numbers or just one. So if I use 2, I'll get a 30, and then I'll get a 40 dividing. By 2, I'll have a 15, I'll have a 20. Let me use 2. 15 cannot be divided by 2, so I'll keep the 15, and then that's going to be a 10. And then by 2, I have a 15 again, then a 5. If I use 3, 3 can divide 15 into a 5. It cannot divide 5. And then I use 5, I end up with 1 and 1. Now from there, if I want to get the LCM, I just multiply these numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have it. There's 1, 3, which is that. And then there's 1, 5, which is that. So from here, we know that the LCM is going to be a 240 by just multiplying these numbers here. Okay. Then for me to get the highest common factor, I need to look for the numbers. Okay. Numbers that divided both 60 and 80. Okay, so the numbers that divided both, we have these 2 here. Okay, we also have these 2. This one, nope. This one, nope. We also have 3 because 3 broke down 15. No. 3 is not part of it. Okay, let's leave the 3. It's this 5 that broke down the 5 and the 5, meaning that we have a 2 by 2 by 5, and then we end up with our 20 as the HCF. Okay, so that is one alternative that could also be used. All right, then we move on to 2.3. This person invested a certain amount of money into a savings account at 6.5% compound interest per annum. If the final amount is 15,000 after 5 years, how much did she originally save? So we're looking for the P value, okay? But then the final value, they're telling us is 15,000. The interest rate is 6.5%. And then the N is 5, if I'm correct. 6.5, 15, and then 5. Okay, so step number one, let's write out the compound interest formula. We know that A, the final value, should be P into 1 plus I to the exponent of n. Let's substitute. The A is 15,000. But why do I say, let me make P the subject straight away, meaning that my P is going to be A divided by 1 plus I. So I divide both sides by this entire bracket. So then I think it would be proper for me to substitute and then punch everything once into the calculator. So 6.5% is 6.5 over 100 with an exponent of 5. Okay, so when I punch this into the calculator, so 15,000, 1 plus 6.5% to the exponent of 5. Okay. What are I getting? What are we getting if the final amount is 15,000 after 5 years? How much did she originally save? Okay, so I'm getting a very weird answer. So we're saying 15,000 divided by 1 plus 6.5 over 100 to the exponent of 5. Okay, so I'm getting 10,000. So 10,948,21. Okay, so that is how much was saved. Or that's what they started with. All right, then 2.4, calculate without a calculator, or simplify without a calculator. So board mass, opening up the brackets, integers, and all of that. So let's start with the inside bracket. So it's going to be a 4 times. That's a 20. We know that a plus and a minus gives us a minus. So that's a 5 minus. And then we're going to have 4. 20 minus 5 is 15. 15 times 4 gives us a 60. Okay, then 2.4.2, still board mass. So 10 times negative 4, we're going to have a negative 40 plus 25 divided by negative 5 is going to give me a negative 5. Then when I plus this, negative 40 plus negative 5, I'm going to end up with a negative 45. Okay, that becomes the answer. Now someone asks, why did you start with the multiplication instead of the division? So multiplication and division must go hand in hand. Can start with any, okay, since they are the first signs. All right, then 2.4.4. If we have the cube root of negative 125, that's going to be negative 5, times the square root of 64 is 8, over the square root of 100 is 10, times the cube root of negative 64, which is a negative 4. By the top, we're going to have a negative 40 over negative 40. Then we get 1 as our answer. Then 2.5, simplify using laws of exponents. Okay, so the laws tell us that when the bases are the same and we are multiplying, we just have to add up the exponents. So that's going to be 3, 2 plus 5, which becomes 3 to the 7. Then 2.5.2, we know that 5 squared is going to be a 25. Anything to the exponent of 0 will be a 1. I'm subtracting 3 divided by 6 will be a half. And then plus negative 2 cubed is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which gives us negative 8. So we know that 25 times 1 is going to be a 25. We are subtracting 8, and then we are subtracting a half. So 25 minus 8 gives me a 17. And then 17 minus a half, that gives me a 16.5. as our answer. Okay, then question number 3, which is the number pattern. They're telling us, given the following number pattern, we have 2, 5, 10, 17. We must write the next 2 patterns. Okay, so what are we adding? We are adding a 3. We are adding a 5. And then we are adding a 7, meaning that we need to add a 9 to make it a 26, and then add 11 to make it a 37. Then provide a rule to describe the relationship between the numbers, okay? Meaning that we must look for the Tn. So whenever we have a pattern whose difference is not the same or whose difference is not consistent, it simply means that it's going to be something squared, n squared, okay? So if I have my n squared here, what do I plus with to have a 2, 5, 10, and so on? So if I plus with 1, will it make sense? 1 squared is 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4 plus 1 is 5. 3 squared is 9 plus 1 is 10. So perfect. So that is the rule. Then 3.2, this person creates a pattern with sticks as illustrated below. They want us to draw the 4th pattern. So 4th pattern is gonna be 4 zigzag lines. So 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so this is gonna be like this. We'll repeat the process. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you can connect this. All right, so that is pattern number 4, and then the table describes the relationship between the pattern and then the number of sticks that were used, okay? So in the first pattern, telling us we're using 8 sticks, then 15, then 22. So basically we are adding a 7. 7 plus 7, we're gonna have a 29, because they want us to get A and B. So meaning that A is a 29. And then what happens when we find pattern 10? So the rule is going to be 7n plus 1 because we have this 7. So it's going to be 7n. And then 8 subtract a 7 gives you a 1. So if we have 10 here, meaning that this B must be 10 times 7, 70 plus 1, which is 71. So B is a 71. And then 3.3, consider the figure below. Okay, we must find A, B, C, D. So with A, we substitute 1 times 3 is 3 plus 5. That's going to be 8. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 5 is 14. For us to get C, use the inverse. So it's going to be -1 minus 5, which is a -6. And then divide by 3, which becomes a -2. And then -4 divide by, minus 5 gives us a -9. Divide by 3, which becomes a -3. Okay, so that is how question 3 would have been answered. Question number 4, simplify. Now, whenever the question asks you to simplify, chances are high you're opening brackets. We're not solving anything. Okay, so if we have brackets and they're asking us to simplify, open the brackets using the FOIL or using the distributive aspect. So 2 times x, we shall get 2x. And then 2 times y, we shall get a 2y. And then 4.1.2, we have 2 brackets, then use the FOIL method. So it's x and x, gonna get x squared. X times 2, it's gonna be a 2x. And then this 2 times x, so also 2x, and then 2 times 2, we get a +4. Simplify this, we have x squared plus 4x plus 4. And then we have x minus y squared as the next question. So this is a square bracket, which is the same as x minus y. times x minus y. When you open that bracket, x and x is x squared, x and y is xy, y and x is minus xy, negative y and negative y, it's plus y squared. So that's x squared. This gives us minus 2xy plus y squared. So that becomes the final answer for that particular question. And then 4.1.4, if we have a division, okay, of expressions, you need to split up, meaning that we shall have 4x cubed over 2x minus 6x squared over 2x plus 2 over 2x. 4 divided by 2 is a 2. X cubed over x, we have x squared. 6 divided by 2 is a 3. We have 2 x's on top, 1 x down. So 1 x must be cancelled. 2 cancels 2, we have 1 over x. So there we go. Then 4.2. They're asking us to factorize. Now, when you're factorizing, it's basically the opposite of simplifying or opening brackets. Okay. So looking at the first part, remember we have a number of methods that we use. So with the first part, we have 3 to be common. Take it out. We shall be left with a plus b plus c. With the second part, it's a difference of 2 squares. Okay, so you're going to have x minus y and then x plus y. And then with 4.2.3, it's the product and the sum. Okay, so it's going to be x plus 5, x plus 3. Because if you multiply 3 and 5, you get 15. When you plus 3 and 5, we end up with 8. All right, so that is question number 4. Question 5, which is the equations, okay? They're telling us that write an equation for the following problem. When I add 24 to the cube of a number, the answer is -3. So if the unknown number is x, so if it's x cubed plus 24, the answer is -3. So this is what they wanted. Then write down the value of x, which will make the statement true. So which number do we multiply with 2, subtract 4 to give us a 12? The closest number I think of is 8, because 2 times 8 is 16. 16 minus 4, we get a 12. And then 5.3, which is the equations. We have 2x minus 3 equals 11. Move the 3 that side. 2x becomes 11 plus 3, meaning that the 2x should be equal to 14. Divide by 2, divide by 2, x is a 7. With 5.3.2, if it's x squared plus 3x plus 2, remember this is a quadratic. We must expect 2 answers. Okay, so first things first, we need to factorize. The product is 2, the sum is 3. So x plus 2, x plus 1 equals to 0. So x should be a -2 or x should be -1. 5.3.3, when you look at the top part and the bottom, you can factorize first. So it's x plus 2 and then x plus 2 over x plus 2 is equal to 0. So this can cancel that, meaning that our x needs to be a -4. Okay, so that is, sorry, x is -2. That's what we get. Then question 6, probably the last question. Okay, consider the graph below. They want us to get the gradient of the line AB. So we know that the gradient is given by the change in y over the change in x. So if I call this x1, y1, this will be x2, y2. Let's substitute. I'll say 8 minus -6 over -2 minus 4. That's going to be a 14 over negative 6, which is a negative 7 over 3. Is that true? Let's try to go back and see negative 6 minus 8, 4 minus 2, minus 14 over 6. Okay, perfect. Then they want us to get the equation, meaning that if we have y is equal to mx plus c, let's use 8 and negative 2. So 8 is equal to negative 7 over 3 times negative 2 plus c. So this is going to give us 14 over 3 plus c is equal to 8. Let's move the 14 that side. 8 minus 14 over 3. So when you subtract this, I'll get a 10 over 3. Let's confirm that with the calculator. Yes, it's a 10 over 3, meaning that it's a y is equal to negative 7 over 3x plus a 10 over 3. Then 6.2, consider the table below. Okay, we have all of this. Complete the table by writing the values of A and B. So what do we see? What I can tell from the pattern is that it's just increasing by 2, meaning that I have to get this 5 subtracted 2, which is going to give me a 3. Okay, so if A is a 3, then 2 is a 9, 3, 4. So we added 2, it's going to be 11. Added 2, 13, added 2, B is going to be a 15. Okay. Alternatively, get the equation, knowing that change in y is going to be 5 minus 1 over 0 minus 3. So 6 over 3, which is 2. So it's 2x. Where x is a 0, there's a 5, which is the y-intercept. Meaning that if x is negative 1, the 3 comes out. And if x is a 5, then that's a 15. Perfect. Then use the values to plot the graph on the grid. Okay, so I'll start by writing the ordered pairs. Okay, we have a negative 3, negative 1, negative 2. Oh, it's a negative 1. Negative 1, we said, is a 3. 0 is with a 5. 2 is going to go with a 9. 1 is with a 7. And then 5 is a 15. Okay, so do we need to plot everything? I'll say no, but it's fine. They said use the x values and y to draw the graph. Okay, so if it's negative 3, must go with negative 1. So negative 3 for the x's here. Follow this line of negative 3 up until you get to negative 1, which is down here. And then negative 2, because we don't have a negative 2, let's plot negative 1. Negative 1 should be a 3. Negative 1 is here. Follow this line up until you meet the 3. Okay, so which is this point? 0, they told us, is with a 5. And then 1 is going with a 7. 1 with a 7. And then 2 with a 9. 3 must go with a 11. 4 must go with a 13. And then 5 with a 15. And then you can connect these points. Okay, using your pencil and your ruler so that you get the graph that the question wanted. Okay, so you can extend this. So we know that negative 2 will be somewhere. Are you sure? It has to be a 1. Okay, so something like that, and that would be our graph. So guys, this brings us to the end of this paper. I wish you guys all the best, okay? In your preparations, in your revision, even in the exam, okay? Be confident, to be yourselves, and go show that paper flames, okay? So let's meet when we look at paper 2.